After being together for over 3 years, my fiancé looked me in the eyes and said, "You're not good enough to be my wife. I'll find someone better," and then walked away. I couldn't help but laugh. Now the woman she left me for has gone off and married someone else, and she's texting me constantly, begging me to come back. The funny part? My new husband reads those messages. Jason and I had been a couple for a little over 3 years. The beginning was honestly amazing. After about 1.5 years, we moved in together. My parents weren't thrilled about it, but I figured, come on, it's modern times. He and I liked all the same things. We were into the same shows, loved trying new spots around town, and could talk for hours about absolutely nothing. He was full of sweet little surprises, like having coffee waiting for me on the nightstand when I woke up, or sending me silly TikToks during the day just because they reminded him of me. It was all those everyday things that made me feel like I'd finally met my person. When he proposed on our 3rd anniversary, I was beyond excited. He picked the same peaceful lake where we'd had our first date. The ring wasn't flashy or huge, but to me it was perfect. Of course, I posted the ring photo on Instagram like everyone does. Then I called my mom, bawling with happiness, and we jumped right into wedding planning for the next summer. But about 5 months after I got engaged to him, something began to shift. It started off subtle. He'd make passing comments about how I looked, not necessarily mean, just off. Like saying a dress might look better if I toned up more, or suggesting I try a sleeker hairstyle. At first, he said it all with a laugh, like it was no big deal. But those remarks became more and more regular. Eventually, it wasn't just about my looks. He started hinting that I should be aiming higher, pushing more in my career. He'd call me out in front of his friends over stuff I didn't know, making me feel small and dumb. Then he began talking down about my family, calling them simple, and saying that if I was going to be his wife, he'd have to elevate me. I wish I could say I stood up for myself right then and there, but I didn't. Instead, I started to believe what he said. I changed my hair, bought new outfits, and began working longer hours. I even enrolled in some online classes, thinking I needed to be more cultured, just like he said. Looking back now, it's honestly embarrassing how hard I tried to reshape myself for him. But when you're in love, sometimes you don't see how bad it's gotten until you're already deep in it. The final straw came about few months before the wedding. We were going over the last few details when he made a remark about the dress I hadn't even shown him yet. I've always been more traditional with that stuff. He said his mom was concerned I'd pick something too predictable instead of something classy enough. When I asked him what he meant by that, he just let it all spill out. He started saying he'd been settling and was now realizing that maybe I wasn't the kind of woman who should be his wife. He told me his family didn't think I'd fit in with their social crowd. Then came the line I'll never forget. He looked me straight in the face and said I wasn't worthy of marrying him and that I could probably find someone better. I was frozen. After almost 4 years together, that's how he saw me? Like I wasn't even worth the effort? Who says that to someone they're supposed to love? I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just laughed. I didn't mean to, it just came out of me, like I'd been holding back a tidal wave for months. The ridiculousness of it all hit me in that moment. I had bent over backward trying to be what he wanted, and here he was, acting like I wasn't enough. When the truth was he didn't deserve me. He didn't expect that reaction. He looked confused, then ticked off, asking what was so funny. I just shook my head and told him he was right. We definitely shouldn't have gotten married, but not because I wasn't worth it. It was because I deserved better than someone who constantly made me feel like I'd never be enough. So I grabbed my bag, walked out of our apartment, and headed straight to my best friend Samantha's place. The tears didn't hit right away. They came later that night. Spending all this years with someone is no small thing, and accepting that it was really over hit me like a ton of bricks. But underneath the sadness, there was this strange kind of relief, like I'd been carrying a heavy load for way too long and someone had finally lifted it off my back. Over the next few days, Jason kept calling and texting nonstop. At first, he was mad, accusing me of being overly emotional and saying I was blowing things out of proportion. Then he switched it up, apologized, and claimed he didn't mean any of it, that he was just stressed about the wedding. Eventually, he circled back to his usual tone, telling me I was making a huge mistake and that I'd end up regretting leaving him. I stayed at Samantha's place for a couple of weeks, trying to figure out what to do next. Canceling a wedding isn't easy, let me tell you. If I can give anyone advice, it's this: wedding insurance is worth every cent. Luckily, I had an amazing group of friends. They helped me call vendors, return gifts, and break the news to our guests. My parents had my back too, though I could tell my mom was quietly concerned about what people in town would say. Small town gossip really doesn't hold back. One of the hardest parts was going back to get my things. I chose a time when I knew he'd be at work, but of course he showed up while I was packing. He went back and forth, begging me to change my mind 1 minute and coldly telling me I was ruining my life the next. At one point he even said, "Good luck finding someone your age, like being 28 was ancient or something." I had to laugh at that. What stood out the most was how he seemed more upset about the embarrassment of it all than the fact that he was losing me. He kept saying stuff like, "Everyone's going to be talking about this, and my family already told everyone about the wedding." Not once did he say he loved me. Not once did he say he'd miss me. That was the moment I knew I was making the right call. I found a small apartment on the other side of town and slowly started making it my own. It was the first time I'd ever lived completely by myself, and honestly, it felt amazing. I got to decorate it how I liked, watch whatever I wanted without side comments, and just be myself without feeling like I was being judged. That first month was tough. I'd wake up expecting his hand beside me or catch myself wanting to share something with him, then remember we weren't a we anymore. But gradually I started reconnecting with parts of myself I had pushed away during our time together. I picked up hobbies I dropped because he thought they were childish. I reconnected with friends I had grown distant from because he never liked them. About a month after the breakup, I heard from mutual friends that Jason was telling people I'd had some sort of mental breakdown and that's why I ended things. Classic Jason, rewriting the story to protect his pride. But the people who really mattered already knew the truth. What did surprise me though was how many people reached out to check in on me. So many friends messaged just to say they were thinking of me or to offer support. A few admitted they'd noticed the way Jason talked down to me and had been worried. One of his own cousins even reached out to say she was proud of me for walking away. On the days when I started second-guessing myself, those little validations helped more than I can say. During all this, Jason's texts started coming less often, but when they did, they felt more manipulative. He'd send messages like, "Your favorite movie's back in theaters," or "We finally went to that restaurant we always wanted to try." No apologies. Just these little crumbs, like he was trying to spark nostalgia or make me wonder what I was missing. I didn't respond to a single one. Few months have gone by since that night, and honestly, I'm doing better than I ever thought I would. My apartment feels like a real home now. I'm doing great at work. Turns out I'm actually pretty ambitious when no one's telling me I'm not good enough. I've even gone on a few dates, not looking for anything serious, just a coffee here and there to remind myself that good men do still exist. There are still moments when I miss what we had. I mean, over 3 years is a long time, and not everything between us was awful. But then I pictured the way he looked at me when he said I wasn't worth it, and just like that, I'm reminded I made the right call. So here I am, 28, single, starting over, and honestly, I'm doing better than I ever expected. I don't know exactly what's ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I'm actually excited to find out. It's been about 8 months since my break. So where do I even begin? I guess I'll start with Jason. I heard through mutual friends that he had started dating someone new. Her name's Erin, and from what I've been told, she's basically everything I'm not. She comes from money, has a fancy job in the city, and apparently commutes an hour each way. Samantha actually ran into them once and told me Erin looked like she just stepped out of a fashion catalog. I'll admit, hearing that stung more than I wanted it to. Even though I knew he wasn't right for me, there's something gut-wrenching about realizing how fast someone can move on after spending years with you. I had a bit of a setback after I found out. Spent a weekend moping, scrolling through old pictures, and wondering if maybe I should have tried harder to become the person he always seemed to want. But then I remembered exactly why we ended. That awful moment when he said I wasn't worthy? That was all the proof I needed of how little he thought of me. No one should ever feel like they have to change who they are just to earn someone's love. They either love you as you are, or they don't deserve you. That's something therapy helped me understand. Yeah, I started going to therapy after the breakup, and honestly, it's been life-changing. Anyway, that same Monday I had to step out of my apartment for a bit, so I went to Samantha's for dinner. While we were chatting, she told me her brother was having a birthday party that weekend and basically begged me to come. A couple glasses of wine later, I agreed. That's where I met Ben. He's Samantha's brother's college best friend and was in town for the celebration. We started off talking in a group, but eventually we ended up alone on the porch swing, deep in conversation about everything from our favorite podcasts to our biggest fears. There wasn't any awkward flirting or pressure. Just this really natural, easy vibe that I'm not sure I'd ever experienced before. I wasn't trying to jump into anything new. I was still loving my independence and healing from everything with Jason. But Ben asked for my number, and the next day he sent a text asking if I wanted to grab coffee before he headed home. He lives about 30 minutes away in the next town over. That coffee turned into lunch, then a walk through the park, and eventually dinner. We ended up spending the entire day together, and it just felt effortless. He asked thoughtful questions and actually listened. When he talked about his family, there was so much warmth in his voice. And not once did he say anything critical about how I looked, what I did, or what I should become. He seemed genuinely interested in who I was, not in who I could be if I changed. We started seeing each other, if you can call a 30-minute drive, long distance, Some weekends he'd come to my place, other times I'd head to his. At the beginning, we had our share of awkward moments, like when his Roomba got stuck under the couch and made this weird screeching noise during our third date. Or when I tried cooking for him and set off the smoke alarm 3 times. But instead of getting frustrated, we just laughed about it. Those little mishaps turned into inside jokes, not arguments. About few months into dating Ben, I ran into Jason and Aaron at Walmart. I'd been dreading that moment, imagining I'd feel awkward or maybe even jealous. But when I saw them, something completely unexpected happened. I didn't feel anything. No jealousy, no anger, not even awkwardness. Just a quiet kind of closure, like I fully accepted that chapter of my life was over. We made small talk, barely a minute, and I could tell Jason was thrown off by how at ease I was. Aaron was polite but clearly uncomfortable. Even though the interaction was short, it felt like a big personal win for me. A few days later, I got a message from Jason for the first time in months. It said something like, "It was nice seeing you. You looked good. Maybe we could catch up sometime, just as friends." I showed it to Ben. He just raised his eyebrows and calmly asked, "So, what do you want to do about it?" No judgment, no jealousy, just support. I decided not to reply. Some doors really are better left closed. As for me and Ben, things just kept unfolding naturally, not too fast, but not dragging either. After about 6 months of dating, he brought up the idea of me moving in. I was already spending most weekends at his place anyway. His house is older, full of charm, and he's been slowly fixing it up room by room himself. The idea of leaving my apartment was a little scary. It had become my safe space after everything, but deep down, I knew it felt right. Living together took some adjusting. Doesn't it always? We had to figure out where my stuff would fit since the house was already pretty set up. We disagreed on the thermostat. I'm always freezing, he's always hot. He drops his shoes in the middle of the hallway. I leave cabinet doors open. But instead of turning into arguments like it had with Jason, these little things just made us feel more balanced. Through Samantha, who's still the queen of small-town intel, I found out Jason and Aaron were getting serious. Apparently, he'd already introduced her to his parents, which took almost 2 years with me. I was surprised by how little that bothered me. If anything, I felt kind of bad for her. I couldn't help but wonder if she was starting to go through the same slow erosion of confidence I'd experienced. About a month after I moved in with Ben, Jason started texting again. Nothing flirty or over the line, just kind of persistent. Stuff like, "How have you been?" or, "I heard you moved. Hope it's going well." And then, "Remember that band we used to love? They're coming back to town." I kept my replies short if I replied at all. I didn't feel the need to tell Ben about every single message. They didn't feel like a big deal, but I wasn't hiding them either. Then one evening, while Ben and I were cooking dinner together, Jason called. I saw his name on the screen and immediately felt my stomach twist. I showed the phone to Ben, who just said, "You can answer if you want to," giving me full freedom to choose. I didn't pick up, but Jason left a voicemail saying he wanted to talk in person, said he had some things he needed to say. After talking it over with Ben, I sent Jason a text letting him know that I was happy and in a healthy relationship, and I didn't think meeting up was a good idea. He replied almost instantly. Said he understood and just wanted to apologize for how things ended. He admitted he'd said things he didn't mean. It was a little late for that, but still, I appreciated it. I thanked him and left it at that. Life kept moving forward. Ben and I fell into this easy rhythm that somehow never felt repetitive. We explored new places to eat, took weekend getaways, and spent cozy game nights with our friends. Every once in a while, we'd talk about the future, nothing heavy, just fun conversations about what-ifs. And then, 6 months after I moved in, Ben proposed. There wasn't some big, dramatic setup. We were having a picnic by the lake, not the same lake where Jason had proposed, thank goodness, and he simply told me he couldn't picture life without me. The ring was a vintage sapphire that used to belong to his grandmother, and it was absolutely perfect. I cried. I laughed. And I said yes, without even thinking twice. That evening, while we were sitting on the porch, sipping champagne and soaking in the moment, my phone lit up with a message from Jason. Jason sent a message that said, "I heard about your engagement. Didn't realize things were that serious. Just hope you're not rushing into something you'll regret." I showed it to Ben, who simply nodded and said, "Some people really don't change, huh?" We both agreed that the best response was no response at all. That night, I blocked Jason's number for good. Whatever game he thought he was playing, I wasn't part of it anymore. The next day, we shared the news on Facebook because, let's be honest, it doesn't feel official till it's out there for the whole world to see, right? The outpouring of love from friends and family was overwhelming in the best way. Among all the sweet comments, Samantha left one that cracked me up. "From not worthy to being with the best man I've met in under a year. That's what I call an upgrade." I guess I should have been embarrassed by such a public reference to my past, but honestly, it felt like the perfect way to sum up how far I'd come. The wedding's set for next month, nothing huge, just a simple ceremony surrounded by the people we love most. And the only thing I feel leading up to it is joy. No nerves, no second guessing. Just peace and the quiet confidence that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Oh, and the cherry on top? Small towns can't keep a secret to save their lives, so of course I found out that Erin broke up with Jason last week. Supposedly she reconnected with an old flame and realized she just settled with him. The irony definitely isn't lost on me. So yeah, that's the latest. Not too long ago, someone told me I wasn't worth it, and now here I am, with someone who makes me feel valued every single day. It just goes to show, sometimes the worst endings can lead to the best beginnings. Planning the wedding this time around felt completely different. With Jason, everything was about impressing his family and trying to keep up appearances. With Ben, it was simple, we just focused on what made us happy. We wanted a small, meaningful ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. No drama over whether the napkins were the right shade of blue or if my dress looked refined enough. It's wild to think I ever put up with that kind of pressure. Then about 2 months before the wedding, Samantha dropped a bomb on me. "Remember Erin? Jason's supposedly perfect new girlfriend?" Well, turns out she'd been spending time with Samantha's brother Derek. They started off as train buddies during their city commutes, then became coffee pals, and eventually, more than just friends. She broke things off with Jason completely out of the blue, and apparently, he was heartbroken. I'd love to say I felt bad for him, but honestly, karma has a funny way of circling back. Samantha told me he was going around telling anyone who'd listen that Erin blindsided him and that he didn't deserve that kind of treatment. Sound familiar? And of course, in the weeks leading up to the wedding, Jason found another way to creep back in. I had already blocked his number after the engagement, but he started sending messages through Instagram. At first it was small talk, congratulating me again, asking how the wedding planning was going. I ignored most of it, but I replied here and there just to keep things civil. Then the tone shifted. "I've been thinking a lot about us lately. I realize now I made a huge mistake." I showed everything to Ben, who just shook his head, calm as ever. The week before the wedding, the messages picked up. He sent stuff like, "Can we talk?" Just to get closure, and "I really want to apologize in person for how I treated you." Then came, "Are you sure you're making the right decision?" That last one got to me. The nerve of him, he's the one who once told me I wasn't worthy to be his wife. I stopped responding altogether. Our wedding day came, and it was perfect in all those real imperfect ways that make something genuine. It rained in the morning, which people say is good luck. During our wedding photos, my veil got caught in a rose bush, and right in the middle of our vows, Ben's little nephew proudly announced he had to pee. But honestly, none of it mattered. We were surrounded by people who loved us for who we truly are, not for who they expected us to be. And yep, Jason tried calling me few times on my wedding day. Thankfully, Samantha, my maid of honor and total lifesaver, had my phone the whole time and just muted the calls. When she told me afterward, we both cracked up. I mean, who really thinks their ex would pick up the phone during their own wedding? Ben and I spent our honeymoon in this cozy little beach town about 5 hours away. We stayed at an Airbnb that looked out over the ocean. We spent our days wandering through local shops, eating way too much seafood, and just enjoying each other without the stress of planning hanging over us. It was the most at peace I felt in years. But when we got back, I had 15 missed calls from Jason. Yeah, 15. Plus a handful of Instagram messages that started with, "I really need to talk to you," then turned into, "Please don't ignore me," and finally, "I made a huge mistake letting you go." I showed everything to Ben. He wasn't jealous, he just looked concerned. "Want me to say something?" he asked. "Might help get the message across." I thought about it and figured, why not? The moment came faster than I expected. We were still unpacking our suitcases when Jason called again. Without skipping a beat, Ben picked up the phone and cheerfully said, "Hello, Lily's phone." There was a pause and then Jason asked if I was around. Ben stayed calm and said, "She's a bit busy unpacking our honeymoon bags right now. This is her husband, Ben. Can I help you with something?" The silence on the other end said everything. Finally, Jason mumbled something about just wanting to congratulate us. Ben thanked him, said we appreciated it, but made it clear, politely, firmly, that I had moved on and it was best to leave things as they were. No anger, no drama, no possessiveness. Just healthy boundaries. That moment made me realize what being in a real relationship feels like. Jason never called again after that. He sent one final message that simply said, "I get it now. I'm sorry for everything. You deserve to be happy." And honestly, it felt like the final page of a chapter that had been trying to close for way too long. Thinking back on everything that's happened over the last year and a half, it's kind of wild. When Jason told me I wasn't worthy of being his wife, I thought my world had fallen apart. But the truth is, it was only just beginning. I'm not sharing this to dwell on the past or fish for sympathy. If anyone out there is going through something similar, please hear this. Sometimes the hardest moments in your life are actually redirecting you to exactly where you're meant to be. Now Ben and I are looking at buying a house together. Something that's ours from the ground up. No shadows of past relationships, no baggage. Just us building a life together. So that's where I'm at. Married at 30, happier than I ever imagined, and finally understanding what it feels like to be truly seen and appreciated. Life's not just good. It's exactly right. But life has a funny way of handing you closure when you least expect it. Ben and I have been married for a little over a year now. About few months ago, after what felt like an endless search, we finally found our first house. It's a cozy ranch with 3 bedrooms, some bold wallpaper choices, and a kitchen that desperately needed a facelift. But it has this huge backyard that we're already picturing a future dog running around in. We're still going back and forth between a golden retriever or a rescue pup. Either way, it's ours. Homeownership, though? A whole new level of chaos. The day after we moved in, the dishwasher flooded the kitchen. 2 weeks later, we discovered a family of squirrels squatting in the attic. And let's not even get into the bathroom that randomly groans at night like it's haunted. But honestly, figuring it all out together with Ben, it's been weirdly fun. We make a great team. He's the muscle, I'm the chaos coordinator. Once we were finally unpacked, we threw a little housewarming party. Nothing fancy, just a Saturday afternoon get-together with friends and family. I spent days scrubbing every corner, arranging snacks like I was auditioning for a cooking show, and trying to ignore the still half-painted hallway. Everything was going great. Samantha brought her famous buffalo chicken dip. Ben's brothers helped set up the new patio furniture, and people flowed between the kitchen and backyard like they'd always belonged there. I was in the kitchen topping off the ice bucket when Samantha walked in with this look on her face. I knew something was up before she even spoke. Then she said it, Jason was outside. Yes, that Jason. Uninvited, holding a bottle of wine, and apparently trying to act casual. Samantha had stopped him at the door, and was quietly figuring out how to break it to me without making a scene. First I was furious. I mean, really? This was our day. Our home. But then I took a breath. And something strange happened. I wasn't anxious. I didn't feel that old gut twist that used to hit me whenever I thought about running into him. I just didn't care. So I told Samantha to let him in. It felt easier than turning him away and making a bigger deal out of it. I went and found Ben. He was showing his dad the garage storage system like a proud DIY king. I explained the situation, and as always, he just raised an eyebrow and asked what I wanted to do. No possessiveness, no drama. Just trust. God, I love that man. We agreed to go greet Jason, polite but distant. When we walked out, there he was, awkwardly hovering by the snack table, looking like he regretted the whole decision already. He wasn't drunk, but he definitely had a drink or two before showing up. He handed me a bottle of wine. Ironically, the exact one he used to mock me for buying because it wasn't refined enough. Oh, the poetry. We made small talk. He complimented the house, asked a few bland questions about the neighborhood, and mentioned the weather like we were co-workers at a force company picnic. And all the while he kept shooting Ben these weird little glances. I could feel the tension building, but I stayed cool. I even introduced him around as an old friend, which felt weirdly generous, considering he once told me I wasn't good enough to be his wife. But then one of Ben's cousins, completely innocent, chimed in, saying how happy we looked together and how perfect we were for each other. That's when everything shifted. Jason muttered something under his breath that sounded a lot like, "She wouldn't be here without me." I asked him to repeat it, and that cracked the door open for him to launch into this strange, self-important speech. He rambled about how he'd prepared me for Ben, how his criticisms pushed me to grow, and how I should thank him for our breakup because it led me to where I am now. I was honestly too stunned to respond right away, but Ben stepped in before I had to. Calm and steady like always. He didn't raise his voice or get aggressive. He just said that while he was grateful I was in his life, my growth had nothing to do with someone else tearing me down. Then he added that we were trying to celebrate our new home, and maybe this wasn't the time for that kind of conversation. Jason didn't take the hint. He turned to me and asked if I ever thought about what could have happened if he hadn't let me go. His words, not mine, as if he ended it, not the guy who once told me I wasn't worthy of being his wife. And the way he said it, like he was doing me a favor by even entertaining the thought of taking me back, just brought me right back to that night when he shattered both my heart and my self-worth. I looked at him and as gently, but as firmly, as I could, I told him no. I don't think about what could have been, because I'm too busy being grateful for what is. That breakup was the best thing that could have happened to both of us. And worthiness? That's not something someone else gets to decide for you. It's something you discover in yourself. The look on his face was a mix of surprise, confusion, maybe even regret. For a second I thought he might actually get it. But then his eyes drifted to our friends, to our house, to the life Ben and I built. And something shifted. He muttered that I'd changed like it was a bad thing, and added that I used to be less cold. Before I could say anything, Samantha, bless her timing, stepped in. She casually brought up seeing Aaron and Derek at the farmer's market the weekend before. Apparently, they're expecting their first child this summer and just bought a house across town. She even showed us a photo. They looked genuinely happy. Watching Jason try to process that was something. It was like watching someone try to solve a riddle with no answer. He looked completely thrown, like it hadn't occurred to him that Aaron would move on so fully. And when Samantha mentioned, without any venom, that Aaron had told her their relationship had been a learning experience, I honestly thought Jason was going to lose it. But instead, he just downed the rest of his drink, muttered something about having another place to be, and made for the door. Ben, ever the gentleman, walked him out. I stayed inside with Samantha, both of us avoiding eye contact so we wouldn't laugh and make a scene. When Ben came back, he just shook his head and said Jason had asked, "Man, is she always this stubborn?" Ben told him he preferred the word self-assured, and then gently suggested he grab an Uber since it was clear he'd been drinking. The party rolled on after that, though I did catch a few curious glances and hear some whispered gossip. Small towns, right? I'm sure this will be the story of the week. The next morning, I woke up to a message from Jason. "Sorry about yesterday. Didn't mean to cause a scene. Hope you're happy." Simple, vague, and probably the closest I'll ever get to closure from him. I didn't reply. Some conversations are better left unanswered. So that's it. Life's not perfect, of course. The roof's going to need replacing sooner than we thought, and Ben and I still argue over whose turn it is to take out the trash. And yeah, I still catch myself wrestling with old insecurities that Jason helped plant. But here's what I've learned. Worth isn't something you earn by twisting yourself to please someone else. It's something you recognize once you're finally with people who never questioned it in the first place.